So please communicate with me through the chat box. At any point in time, put in your questions and comments, and I will get to them at the end. So welcome. For those of you who are going to take the full course, you are going to make an incredible investment in yourself. This course is going to equip you with the means to create a fantastic future, both personally and professionally. And here on the right, the 3 modules are listed. Module 1, as I mentioned, is all about career stagnation and getting you unstuck so that you can start to move yourself forward. Module 2 is about the idea that we're very dependent, not just on our careers, but on our employers. And what I want to teach you in Module 2 are some tools and tricks to help you create more autonomy, more space in between your employer and yourself so that you have more freedom. Module 3 is all about unfulfillment. So many people are unhappy with their careers, or they're not satisfied with the direction their careers are going. And Module 3 is all about helping you put your career purpose into perspective. Okay, so today is Class 1 of Module 1, and this is going to set the tone for the rest of the course. So this is a really important class today. We're going to be digging into the brain and talking about the brain just a little bit. Here is an outline for tonight. We're going to cover just a few basics about the brain in the first section. And in the second section, I'm going to talk to you about challenging your own brain. And I want to introduce the idea to you that your brain is kind of like a toddler running wild, that you need to keep an eye on and that you need to control. And then in section 3, we're going to talk about the difference between fact and fiction. What does that mean and why does that matter? And then we'll wrap it up with a conclusion. Okay, welcome to your brain. As most of you probably already know, us humans have a frontal lobe. And in this frontal lobe, we are able to perform human functions that other animals cannot do. And I have listed some of them here. We can solve complex problems. We have the ability to plan ahead for a long-term future. We understand how to use strategy and reasoning and logic, and we understand that it's possible to manage our emotions. We have a great memory. Our frontal lobe, and this could be a little bit scary, but they say it's really not fully developed until we're about the age of 25. So up until the age of 25, your brain is what we refer to as plastic. Okay, so that means it's very much designed and ready to take in new information and to learn things. Okay. The frontal lobe is by far the most powerful tool that you will ever own in your whole life. Your brain has an amazing capability to decide to do something and then follow through and actually execute. None of your other organs have that ability. If your brain, for example, decides, you know what, I want to be more empathetic. I want to show more empathy with people. Not only does your brain have the capability to decide that, but your brain actually has the ability to execute and to change itself so that you can be more empathetic. That's just one random example, but that's why your brain is such a powerful tool. Now let's talk about neural pathways. So neural pathways connect one neuron to another. A neuron is simply a brain cell. Now, this is important because every time you have a thought or belief, the same pattern of neurons essentially lights up or is stimulated. What that means is that for every thought or for every belief you have, there is one specific pattern associated with that thought or that belief. Now, your brain will attach a meaning to that specific pattern when it lights up or when it's stimulated. It could be something as simple as an apple, or your neural pathway could be as complex as something like love and integrity, when you have thoughts and beliefs about love and integrity. And of course, emotions can get very complex. So as we think about these things, we're creating neural pathways in our brains that light up every time we think something. So in bullet number 4, every time you have the same thought, the same pattern lights up. Why is this important? This is important because the stronger you believe something, or the more you repeat a certain belief, the stronger the neural pathway, the deeper the neural pathway. And we're going to talk about why that's so important here in the next couple of slides. But what it has to do with is the fact that your brain likes to go for those neural pathways that are deeper. The ones that are more shallow, the beliefs and the thoughts that you don't have as much, or the ones that feel really foreign to you or that are hard to believe, the brain doesn't like to go to those so much. So the takeaway here is that every belief has a specific neural pattern, and those patterns can be deep or shallow. Now, neural pathways can either be created immediately, or they could be changed over time. So I'll give you an example to help you understand. You can create a new belief or a new thought immediately. If you have ever known somebody who was a smoker, and I've known a few people in my lifetime who went to the doctor after having tests done, the doctor said, you have to give up smoking or you're going to die. And these people instantly told themselves, I'm going to stop. So they had a new thought. They had a new belief. The belief in their mind was, if I keep smoking, I'm going to die. And they instantly changed their habits and gave up smoking. So that is one way that neural pathways can be created. The other way is that they could be changed. And this is a process that occurs over time, kind of like building new muscle at the gym. So the way it works is, number one, the brain reviews an old idea, an old belief, an old thought. It receives new information, and then it gradually changes what it believes, and it reinforces a new neural pathway. It creates a new neural pathway. So anytime you try something new, a new hobby, learning a new language, you are creating new neural pathways. Now, if you're over the age of 25, it'll be a little bit more difficult than it used to be, okay? Because under the age of 25, your brain is much more plastic. So there's a little bit of friction there. There's a little bit of work that you have to do in order to learn something new over the age of 25. So neuroplasticity is really important because that is how we learn and grow. That is how we have been developing ourselves as a species over time. So neuroplasticity is a wonderful thing. We want to keep doing that. We want to continue building new neural pathways, even though sometimes it feels really tough. Now, on to section 2. We're going to talk about challenging your brain. All right. So this slide is meant to help you understand that our brains were not wired to be accurate. They were not wired to be correct. They were wired to keep us alive. And some of you may have heard of the motivational triad. This is a term that states that our brains were basically designed, number 1, to seek pleasure, number 2, to avoid pain, and number 3, to conserve energy. And those things were really important back in the day when we used to live in caves and we had to hunt animals for food and other animals would hunt us. That came in really handy. But sometimes seeking too much pleasure or getting obsessed about avoiding pain, or wanting to conserve energy all the time, that can get in the way with our progression. That can get in the way of us actually putting to use neuroplasticity. It can get in the way of us learning new things and advancing ourselves. And we don't want that. So remember, the brain was designed to seek pleasure, to avoid pain, and to conserve energy. And when it comes to conserving energy, let's talk about those neural pathways. What I said a few moments ago is that your brain likes to revert to the deep neural pathways because it's easy for the brain. It doesn't have to do any work. It just automatically goes to those really strongly held beliefs and thoughts. So that's good to know. One thing that our thoughts and our beliefs do for us, not only do they light up a certain neural pathway in our brain, but these thoughts actually propagate our behaviors. So that's why thoughts and beliefs are really important, because they drive us, they motivate us. Now, perceptions are also another word of having a thought or a belief, because your brain looks at the world around you and it makes interpretations and it perceives things, and then it makes judgments about what it sees because of the motivational triad, because it wants to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. So your brain sees all this information outside in the world, things that are external to you, and it creates thoughts and beliefs. As a coach, part of my job is to help you understand what it is you're actually believing. What are your perceptions of the world around you? What are your beliefs about yourself, about the people you work with, about your job, and so on? So through this course, I'm going to help you unravel some of your beliefs and thoughts that you have. And the whole goal here is to manipulate neuroplasticity. So what we want to do is leave behind some of the older thoughts and beliefs that are not serving you so much today, and create room in your brain for new neural pathways and new thoughts and new beliefs that are going to move you forward. Okay. That brings us to the third section. Now we're going to talk about fact or fiction. So neuroplasticity, if we're going to manipulate it in this course, it works best if you actually understand what your belief systems are. So this is a key concept here, is separating facts or situations. I use those terms synonymously. Being able to separate situations from your beliefs or from your fiction. This is a really critical step, and it may take some practice and it may be awkward at first, but I'm going to help you differentiate between what is a situation versus what is a belief. If you can get good at doing that, then you'll really be able to manipulate neuroplasticity. Situations and facts are objective. Okay, they are external to you, and they are out there in the world, and they exist objectively, meaning there is no opinion inserted into a fact. So, for example, you could pull up one of the many news media stations right now and read about some of the things that they are reporting or have written about. Now, whether their reporting is true or not is a whole nother story. The fact is they are reporting whatever it is they're reporting. That's a fact. People outside of you, people you engage with, people you talk to, people you fight with, people are facts. They are situations external to you. Your job is a fact. It's a situation that exists outside of you. The pandemic is another fact. It's a situation that exists outside of you. Now, notice in these 4 examples, there are no opinions. Beliefs, however, are subjective and they come from your brain. And usually beliefs have your own opinion inserted into them. So a belief is the same thing as a perception or an interpretation. It's a narrative. Sometimes you'll hear me use the phrase, we tell ourselves a lot of narratives. And beliefs are self-talk. The takeaway here is that just because you believe something to be true doesn't mean it is. And we are going to talk about this concept over and over in this course, because the ability to separate facts from fiction, and we'll go over a couple of examples in detail here in a moment. The ability to be able to separate these two is key. It is so important. If you can manage that ability and get good at it, that in and of itself will help you de-stress and see the world a little bit differently. And you'll be able to understand that it's more manageable when you can separate your thoughts from the actual situations. Okay? All right, so just because you believe something doesn't mean that it's true. Here we go. Here are 4 examples in detail that we can go over to help you understand subjective beliefs versus objective situations. Somebody could say to you, dogs are loud and obnoxious. Now, their perception of dogs is that dogs can be loud and obnoxious, but that person thinks it's true. Like it's just a fact. It's just an observation. Dogs are loud, dogs are obnoxious. But that is not true. That is not a fact. The fact is that dogs bark. That's a fact. No opinion inserted there. Number 2, you may have heard some people say COVID has really messed up the economy. Okay, I've been hearing this one for several months. They think it's true. The person who says this out loud probably thinks that's a fact. And I would say to them, actually, no, it is not a fact. The fact is that COVID has changed the economy. It's not a fact that COVID has ruined the economy. That is subjective. Number 3, I had somebody come to me once and she said, I can't say no to the boss. I have to do everything the boss tells me. And she genuinely thought it was just a fact. She was just making an observation. And so I asked her a few questions and I said, okay, if you think about your past and all the bosses you've had in the past, did you always do everything that they said? She said, no. I said, okay, if you think about your future bosses, do you think you're always going to have to do everything they say? And she said, nope. And the third question I asked her, I said, looking back at your past, did you ever suffer a dire consequence? Did you ever get punished for not doing everything your bosses told you to do? And she said, no. And I said, well, let me ask you again. Do you think it's a fact that you can't say no to the boss? And she said, no, it's not a fact. And she kind of had a light bulb moment because she realized she has more control than what she thought. And her situation became more manageable and there was less stress put on her shoulders. So when somebody says to you, I can't say no to the boss, that's just their narrative. That's what they think is true, but it's really not a fact. The fact is they get to choose how they want to respond to the boss. Number 4, people have come to me and said, my employer doesn't value me. And of course, they think it's a fact because they have all this evidence that shows their employer doesn't value them. And what I point out to them, one of the facts here is that your employer employs you. That's a fact. Now, whether it's their job to value you, that's a whole nother topic. That's a whole nother story. So these 4 examples, I hope, will help you understand the difference between a subjective belief or an objective situation. And where we get tripped up a lot is when we tell ourselves beliefs and narratives that we think are true and they're really not, and then they really just bring us down. Or we get into a vicious cycle, or it snowballs, and we don't want to do that to ourselves. So here is kind of a summary of what we talked about tonight. Key takeaways. Why should we differentiate situations from beliefs? So the way this works is that number one, your brain interprets external situations, and we call those beliefs, or thoughts or perceptions. Your brain then creates neural pathways every time you believe whatever that thought or perception is. The stronger your belief and the more you think it, the stronger the neural pathway gets. And therefore, the more your brain is going to want to keep thinking whatever that thing is. Now, your brain wasn't designed to determine whether that belief is good or bad for you. That's not the brain's job. The brain's job is to just keep going back to the strong neural pathways. Very important to know. The other takeaway is that neuroplasticity allows us to alter our beliefs. So when we dig deep inside of ourselves and we start uncovering beliefs that are not suitable or that are not working well for us, we can start to change those beliefs. And that's what I can help you do. The last takeaway, fiction can always be changed, hence neuroplasticity. That's the whole reason we're here. We're going to change some of your thoughts and beliefs through the course of this whole course to help you create an amazing career for yourself. So the conclusion tonight, why you are held back. One reason is because of number one, the motivational triad. Your brain wants you to be comfortable and safe, and it doesn't want to do any more work than it has to. So you need to use your prefrontal cortex and override that motivational triad. Second reason you're held back is because you believe certain thoughts and narratives and interpretations without questioning them. Sometimes our beliefs and perceptions seem so real and so matter of fact that we're not used to questioning them. And I'm going to help you learn how to question everything. Number three, the third reason we're held back is because we have many self-limiting beliefs. And we have self-limiting beliefs that unfortunately we keep believing over and over, and that builds a strong neural pathway. As a quick example, I used to believe I'm not a morning person. I used to tell myself that for years and years and years. I'm just not a morning person. I'm just not a morning. I thought it was a fact. I thought it was true. And it wasn't. And I made myself suffer for many years because I hated the sound of the alarm clock. I hated getting up early, hated getting out of bed before 11 a.m. And I would tell myself, I'm just not a morning person. And that was not a fact at all. That was just a narrative I told myself for years and years and years. My brain found it very easy to keep believing it. And number four, we didn't talk about this today. The fourth reason that you're held back is because of a lack of self-confidence. And I can confidently sit here and say that because every person that I talk to or that I work with individually, every group that I speak to, everybody seems to struggle with building self-confidence. It doesn't matter how old people are. It doesn't matter how experienced they are. Everybody on some level seems to want to work on their own self-confidence. And that's what Module 2 is all about. So this course is going to help you resolve all of the above and then some. And last, I'd like to leave you with this wonderful quote by Stephen Covey, author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He says, I am not a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my decisions. So thank you very much, everybody.